How far can a TV signal travel? 56 miles, right? So you know this from your local TV station with a huge antenna. And this is digital. This is digital now. Going back to UHF, 4 to 6 miles. It can travel 4 to 6 miles. And VHF is about 3 miles, right? So if you have a TV signal or something like this, of course we have cable now, we have all these things, right? And if back when I was a kid, you had to be very close to the TV station, or you wouldn't get stations, you wouldn't get channels, right? So this was before cable TV and all these things. And this is in the 70s when I was a kid, because I was 5 years old when the moon landing took place. And so they would have had to have so many satellites, so many power stations to take the signal and then to transmit a signal back to Earth, right? Again, we're talking about basically 240,000 miles away. And this thing can travel 8 miles, like 4 to 6 miles, and 3 miles. Plus, it has to go through this massive Van Allen radiation belt, which is would disrupt any kind of signal. There's just no way they could get any kind of signal through that, even if there were satellites. So all the satellites are orbiting around the Earth. Do you understand this? There is these massive power signals that there needs to be a massive signal that's sent out. You see these big dishes, right, that they use to send out TV signals, and they only go, under 100 miles, And so if there's a mountain in the way, you know this if you try to get an antenna TV. If you switch off your cable or your dish, and they can only go so far. These are radio waves, right? And so you have you have this limited range. You understand this? You see your TV station, the local TV station that might be somewhere in the city, and they have these giant dishes on top of the building, and they send out the signal, and then it goes to antennas and maybe other relay stations, so they get a signal boost, and then those relay stations send it out even farther, right? And so they have a range. It has a range, and then it's got to be boosted by some sort of antenna or dish or something to send it farther. And so they were saying back in 1969, when there were far fewer satellites, and they had none of this technology. It's in black and freaking white, right? So they don't even have color TV, but they're saying they beamed a TV signal that only goes from one satellite to another, bouncing off these things. They had the power of the signal, the power of the energy that's pushing the signal out there all the way back to Earth. It's impossible. We know this now. They've been caught by the very, evidence. They needed to come up with something that was at that time sexy, right? TV was new, and TV was, relatively new, right? And so this is something where they were in the early stages of television. The moon is too far away. Even now, I don't think that they can beam a signal back even now with so many more satellites, with all this technology. We know they can't do it from Mars. We just saw that, right? They don't have the technology to beam a signal back from the Mars lander, right? And it takes like these Hubble telescopes and these things. It takes a long period of time to beam signals back. It's just, they just didn't simply have the ability. It's so obvious. Should have been obvious to us all. When we were researching this, they couldn't do it. There's no way people could have watched this thing live in 1969. Can't even do it now. You couldn't, if they went to the moon now, they wouldn't be able to do a live broadcast. And that's part of the problem with all this, right? When you lie and you do something that's a hoax, and then later on you can do it for real. You can do it for reals. That's why they lost all the telemetry data and all these things. They didn't go to the moon. and they didn't broadcast back from the moon. You're busted.